Hello, true gardeners. Today we are back in my yard today, and I thought we would do a video on the dirt. Yes, I'm getting questions on what is the best soil mixture to use for a tropical garden. Well, I will share with you my soil recipe and how very easy it is. So the very thing that I use for almost all of my tropicals is first black cow. Black cow is a phenomenal product to use. It has a slow release fertilizer in it, and I would say it makes the perfect base for for all of my planting beds. So I use 50% black cow. Let's kind of go over here and show you guys my group. So I use 50% black cow. And that, like I mentioned, that is my base. So this kind of gives your plants an overall slow release snack over time. So this is just, it's a lot cheaper than Miracle Grow. And I've seen some of those bags. It's just astonishing to me. $12, $15, I think $17 was the last one that I looked at for the organics. But anyway, this is much cheaper. I think it's $6 a bag, and you get quite a bit from it. So this becomes my base for all of my either potting mixes or my large bed fertilizers. The very next thing would be peat moss. So peat moss is the ideal product to use. I do 25%. So if I have a pot, you guys, I'm going to use 50% of this guy here, 25% to fill up the remainder of the pot here, and then the other 25% would be the pine bark. So go back to the magic of peat moss. So peat moss, I know if you're a gardener, you probably know exactly what you use peat moss for, but this is like a sponge. The other benefit to this is what I find a lot through our Florida gardens, especially Vero Beach, Melbourne area, and Viera now with all the new development. The pH levels in the soil is through the roof. So anything at 7.5 and higher, I use maybe sometimes up to 50% peat moss because I'm trying to bring that pH level down to a more acidic level, because a lot of the plants and trees that I like to work with really appreciate that acidic kind of soil and really do phenomenal with it. So I will kind of bump up the peat moss to do that, and helps with that. So and there's other additives that I add in, but this, I would say that this is my perfect base. This is what I start with. So if we need potassium, if we need some other micronutrients, because considering what the condition of the soil looks like after I have it tested, then we'll add that in. But this is a fantastic base to start with, especially if you're working with pots. So peat moss, so 50%, 25%, and my other 25% is the pine bark nuggets. I know a lot of people are going to ask, why don't use perlite? And back when I first started, oh gosh, 100 years ago, I did use perlite. It's a great product, but I prefer this, especially if I'm working on a large scale bed. So if I'm kind of doing a whole back buffer or an island planting, I'll make sure to use this pine bark nugget. It does a nice job of aerating the soil. It makes everything a little bit lighter. So the combination of these three really work hand in hand with each other, what they do. So this kind of allows whatever plants or trees that I plant, it leaves open pockets in there, so that way the plants aren't suffocating, especially in areas where like Melbourne and Vero and some of these areas that have more of the pond soil, I guess is what I call it, the soil they dig out of the ponds and they make that's your topsoil now. It turns into a brick when it dries out. So this soil mixed in with that really does a nice job of breaking that area up, making it much lighter, making allowing you to have moisture in there, but not allowing you to have wet feet. So it kind of takes the sogginess out of it, and it breaks down so slowly that I feel like the combination of the three just make the perfect soil mixture. Now, that being said, if it's a very small area or a small potted plants or anything like I have here, like my living wall, which the pots are very small, I have a tendency to use the cocoa core. I'll grab that here. This is my favorite product for that. So I might not use the peat moss, but in place of the peat moss, I'll use this. This is a brick of cocoa core. I like that it's so easily stored. You just peel a piece of that brick off, and then you add water to it. Kind of see there. You just add water to it, it expands, and it makes the perfect potted mixture. So a little bit of black cow, a little bit of cocoa core, and just a tiny bit of this here, and then you've got the perfect potting mixture for a small potted planting. But if you're working with a big area and you're working with your landscape or your outdoor exterior area, these are my three go-to. It's a lot less expensive than getting multiple bags of Miracle Grow, and I promise you, you will not be sorry. Their combination works super well together. So I hope this video helps kind of shine some light on what the professionals use for their soil mixtures, or at least what this professional uses for their soil mixture, and it works really well for your garden. Please comment down below if you use it and you've had good success with it, or if there's anything else that you've added to your soil mixture of this trio that you like even better. I'd love to know. So comment True Gardener if you made it through the video. Again, our True Gardener t-shirts are going to be down below, and I will see you guys in the very next video. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and I will see you in the very next video with a few more helpful tips. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye. So hello, gardeners. Today's question of the day is how to protect your palms, your plants, your trees, maybe your new landscaping from an upcoming hurricane or tropical storm. So we just went through a tropical storm over here in Vero Beach. It was much lighter than we anticipated. I'm so very thankful. I know they got hit so very hard inland, and you know, it was a lot of water, but we were fortunate enough to not get the devastation that we were worried about getting. This is a project that we finished about 2 weeks ago, so we ended up coming back here the day before the storm and staking the trees so that that way they didn't end up in the pool. And I want to share with you guys how we staked them, so you guys have a really good just general idea if this might be something that you want to tackle for your trees. It really does a good job of securing your trees in place. So I'm going to flip this camera around and show you guys exactly what that looks like, and then I'll even slide in a picture or a little bit of video of the guys doing that as they're kind of working through it, so you have a really good feel for what that looks like. So, but the very first thing that you want to do prior to staking is kind of walking through your garden. Any limbs that are brown, anything that might be dead in the canopy of the trees, go ahead and trim that out. You know, I know we get several days of warning prior to those storms coming, so walk through your garden a couple times, because those kind of things turn into projectiles very easy, and a little bit of wind is going to break that off, and then at the very least it's just going to leave you with a terrible mess. So kind of walking through your garden and opening those areas up, cutting them out. And it also does something really good for maybe canopy or thicker trees. You know, it allows gaps in between that canopy, so it takes pressure off of it being like one thick grouping or one like a sail. It actually allows air to pass through those areas. So sometimes if it's a new tree, I suggest my clients, even if it's a bad haircut, give your trees a haircut. I'm going to show you one. I'll slide in one that was done that way. It was a powder puff tree, and it's just, you know, their limbs when they're young are still very tender, so there's a good chance that was going to kind of, you know, just fall apart or possibly break in half because of the wind. Bottle brush trees, bougainvillea trees, hibiscus trees, those are all trees that I would cut way back. Allow that air to go through them, puts a lot less pressure on the stem itself, because what you're really worried about is that stem. If that stem breaks, then your tree is pretty much gone. So cutting that back does a fantastic job of allowing that to go through. And that goes for palm trees too. Any kind of browning, any coconuts on your coconut palms, anything like that, go ahead and give it what they call a hurricane cut. Cut it back. You know, I say not to cut, you know, all of that nice green foliage on there, because they do need that for energy, and your trees are going to need that to rebound. So we'll definitely go over some things that you can do right after the storm that's going to help that tree and plant pop back after the devastation of what wind and rain does to it. So but go ahead and cut back anything that has a little bit of brown on it. Really open up that canopy. So as for potted plants, you want to go ahead and just kind of, if you can't bring those inside, just lay them over. You want to just kind of make sure that they're good and saturated, water them really good, because even though that we're going to get rain, when they're leaning over, the water just passes right through the root ball, so it's not going to help at all. So go ahead and give it a good douse of watering, and then right before the storm, go ahead and lay them over, and kind of, if you can, push them up against the house or up against an area where they're not going to roll. But these are for really heavy pots, so that does a good job of just kind of keeping them somewhat secured, and that takes a lot of that force of that wind off of them. And then of course you know that they're not going to knock over and break in the wind, and then, you know, that way you're dealing with that. But go ahead and lay them over. So let me flip this camera around and share with you guys how we go about staking the material and what we use for that. All right, so here we are, you guys. We're in a backyard island planting. Bryce and I did this video a few days ago. Funny enough, you guys probably haven't had a chance to see it yet, because this question and answer is going to come up before the video is ready to be published. But I wanted to share with you what we did. So we came back to this house. These trees were transplanted. They were her original trees, so the roots have been cut. They weren't quite ready to to withstand the kind of storms that we've had. They've only been in the ground, newly in the ground again, for 2 weeks. So what we did is we put plywood on those, and then we put strapping on these. But first we'll talk about the plywood. So what we did is we cut these 2x4s, placed them, the ends on the tree itself to kind of protect from digging into the tree, and then cut the angles on these other remaining 2x4s, and then attach them to the boards here. So we did that in the main location. So what you want to make sure is that you get all the way around the tree, because this tree over during those windstorms, it's going to vibrate. So you want to make sure that you have you want to make sure that it's fastened pretty tightly with the 2x4s, and then ratchet strapped around it. Because as that vibration happens, these guys will literally come off the edge of the tree. So this ratchet strap is one of the most important things to use on it. It holds it secure, holds it tight, and vibrates with the tree. So that way you get complete coverage. Now, on a larger tree, this one's kind of narrow, so 3 is just fine, but on a thicker tree, then you're gonna wanna use 4. That way you get all the way around the tree, nice and easy. But that is a very easy and simplistic way to do it. I know it doesn't look like it, but a few snaps, these ratchet straps make it very, very easy. I think they're like $9 or $10, so it's definitely worth having on hand. And then just cut these guys, that way you're protecting the base of the tree, and then angle those guys in right into the ground there. And these don't have to be dug into the ground. You see, they're just kind of angled into the ground. That keeps continuous pressure on the tree. Now we're going to leave these on here for the rest of the season, so since we're almost through it, but you can leave these on for as long as your first year through installation, or I know they're not beautiful, so if you want to take them off, that's where you are. So we're going to take these off at the end of this season. So on a smaller tree like this triangle fan palm, now this triangle fan palm, I wasn't very concerned about it. When they get bigger, they're more of a sail, but you see all these gaps through this, they are built for wind just passing right through those. And so you want to make sure that you don't overdo it with these guys, because if this tree, for instance, it's such a young tree, the base is so slender, if you put something like the 2x4s on this, it could technically snap the tree in half, and that's the last thing you wanted. You would actually want it to go down before obviously you snapped it and killed it. So the whole goal of these straps are for smaller trees, and those straps are fantastic for bottle brush trees, bougainvillea trees, any hibiscus trees, anything like that, where you want to make sure that that it's not at all a heavy tree. So those straps do a good job. And we've got angled in rebar right there on that corner there, and then all the way around the tree. And then all we've done is take the straps and knot it around the center of the tree, which again, we're just kind of keeping pressure on the tree and then pushing in those straps. And that's for your young trees. And at the same time, if there's any brown fronds, it's a great time to get rid of those things. Anything that where you can allow the air to go through the trees, this is an ideal time to do your trimming. Even if it's not even, just kind of go through there and get rid of anything that doesn't belong. Not just so it doesn't become a projectile because it's a weak link, but mainly because it just allows more and more air to go through it. Here's an example of another tree that needed just an overall haircut. Now, this tree is such an aggressive grower. It was 4 times this size, but it will flesh back out. However, the stems on these guys are kind of like the Royal Poinciana stems, the powder puff stems, the bottle brush stems. They're thinner branching, so they're not a hard wood. So it's really, really good idea just to go ahead and give this a pretty severe cut back. The wind will go right through that, and it's not breaking that trunk. And then, of course, now you have to replant the whole tree.
Come on, we're doing trimming.
Give me back my clippers. Talib, what's he doing? Nicely done. Look at Olive.
She still has it. Good girl. Good girl. Come here, let me have the trimmer. Thank you. You want to go in here with me? Come on. Let's go put them away.
All right, you guys, so that about does it for how to prep the area for a storm that's coming in. Now, after the storm, so we're a day after our storm, and the first thing that we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna hit these trees and these plants, especially the ones that look like they've really been devastated, with an insecticide. So I use Bifin IT, it's a drench. I find that it's a really, really good product to use because it's nice and aggressive, and then I can spot treat what I want. So you mix an ounce of it into a gallon of water, you shake it up, and then you pour it on the plant. Now, I might not want to pour it on my pollinators because of course it is an insect killer. That is, that's what it does. But on some of the plants and the trees that I know are going to be attacked because they're weakened, and insects come running after storms because everything is pretty much weakened from that damage. So anything that got some breakage on the leaves, those are just open areas right there to be attacked. So I want to go ahead and hit them with an insecticide. So I use Bifin IT, the drench. And then the very next thing that I do, I want to let that sit. I want to let that work into the ground. Give it a few days, and then you can hit your trees, especially your palms, with an ag-chelated drench. I'll link it down below, but it's a drench that you do kind of the same thing with. You put an ounce of it in a gallon of water, shake it up, and pour it around the root base. Or you can put it on a hose end sprayer and spray your whole garden that way. So they have the little dial that tells you how much to use on there, but you kind of just go through the whole garden and hit everything with a spray. It's a topical. If you can do that in the morning, the palm trees absorb that super, super well before the heavy UV light comes out. All the pores are open on the palm trees. So if you can do it early morning before 10 a.m. and just do it like you would do graffiti on a tree. You wouldn't do graffiti on a tree, but you would do. So do it like you're painting the tree. So the whole idea is just to paint the whole tree with that. And that way it just absorbs through the entire tree. You can do it on your tropicals, but mainly it does a great job of really giving your palm trees that dose of just that jump start again. So now you've protected it from the insects, so it's nice and safe. And then a few days later, you hit it with an ag drench. And then now that tree's back up and running again. So those are the two things that I do to my garden after we have a storm. I also do that after we have a freeze. Anytime that you have a weakness or anytime you have something that's going to devastate your garden, those are two ways to protect it. Now, if we also have a lot of sitting or excess water, if the rain just keeps coming and coming and coming like it did for some of our previous storms, then you might want to hit that with a fungicide. So there you have it, you guys. You can hit that with those three mixes, do a good job of just kind of protecting your garden, getting it back up and running after a storm. And if you run across any other questions, then please let me know those in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. So take care. Good luck, gardeners.